It is the 23rd of April, 2026. We have already cash collected 1.4 million already. There is 1.2 in this payment processor. I'm just refreshing just to show you. And there is an extra 200K from our sister agency and other sources. So why am I creating these videos? Well, I have nothing to sell you. I am the biggest agency owner in the UK. I'm 23 years old. That's for my age, that is. And no one else is going to be giving you the same amount of value as I am in this video. I'm not incentivized to give you anything, but I'm holding nothing back. This will be better than a lot of material in all of these gurus' paid courses. Okay, why is there a picture of Andrew Tate on the screen right now? And that's because of his idea of maximum accountability. And it's very apt for what I'm going to be going over today, because these are challenges that I've overcome in the last 3 months whilst doing anywhere from 350 to 400 US per month. Okay. Now, every service side fight is a result of an upstream issue with sales. If you're completely honest with yourself, this is the facts, because you could have just charged more, right? And the reason I say this, right, is because I see a lot of people fall into this trap. I know agency owners who've been trying to perfect their service for literal years, okay? But they are failing and failing again, and they're still stuck under 20, under 50, under 100K a month, okay? Now, you could have fixed that with sales because it's the path of the least resistance, right? Let's look at this diagram to illustrate. So if you reduce your chargebacks by improving your service, working on some little add-ons, working on training for whoever your clientele are, okay, that's going to take 3 to 6 months to perfect at a minimum, right? I know people, as I said, who've spent years trying to perfect this. That is going to give them a very small uplift. Same with the cancel rate, same with improving show rate. But if you just doubled your prices, okay, and you got a better closer, you could instantly double your profits, at least double your profit, depending on how your costs work. Okay. Now, it's this cycle, and this illustrates what I was saying earlier. Okay, so everything starts with the marketing, and then you can obviously market if you do have that good product, and that's going to help the sales, that's going to help the close rate, the show rate on the calls. Then you got your service. Okay, but this can all be solved if sales is put on a pedestal, right? Because if you just charge double, you can go ahead and buy a service. Right now, I could buy your service for 50 grand. There's no way I would come up to you and be like, hey bro, look, we're really struggling. I'm going to pay you 50 grand wire to your bank account if you just show me the ins and outs of your service. I can only do that because I worked on sales initially and you guys didn't. What would I rather have? A 50K a month agency with a perfect service where I don't need to rely on sales, or a 400K a month agency where, sales is a big part of it and the service we haven't given too much thought to, even though it is pretty good. It's just the nature of what we do. It's a pay-per-lead service that get billed every day, and they're constantly reassessing, which brings me onto my next point, okay, which is the problem with charging with leads. Now, you guys are probably thinking, but Will, you are the biggest agency owner in the UK, okay, and you charge per lead. I'm sure you guys have seen my company Prime Listing Leads, and how does this work? Okay, well, there is a pedestal of things that you can charge by, and each have their own basically benefits, and this is how you should look at them, right? So at the bottom of the tier, let's just start with info as this example, because that's where the ladder stretches the longest. So you can sell them more engagement. I'll get you 3,000 or 3 million views in 3 months. Cool, not really a strong offer. There's no monetary benefit for that, so you can't really charge that high. Getting them more followers, like for like, very hard to tie to revenue. Getting them more leads, okay? Now this is what we do, but we have huge problems. It only works for us because we're in a huge market. And, unfortunately, the people in that market are very hard to appease, right? In America, we work in real estate, by the way. Anyone can become a real estate agent, right? You just got to do a fucking 3-week course. And then suddenly you're this chartered real estate agent, and they have no background, no interest, no understanding of how sales works, okay? They're easy to deliver, right? And it's very copy and pasteable, but you're going to hear your leads suck. If you're billing someone, and this is the same with appointments, right? Let's say you're billing someone $100 per lead, okay? They get billed $100, they check the lead and it doesn't answer. That's never going to go down well. But yet worse, with an appointment, you're charging 500 bags 500 pounds for an appointment, or dollars. They got on the phone and the appointment no-shows them. How the fuck do you think that's going to go down? Because this time they haven't lost 100, they've lost 500. However, you are going to have a higher success rate from that. If you're dealing with affluent clients, I'd recommend appointments. Getting them more clients. This is the golden one, okay? But it's kind of been rinsed. But the only issue with this, it is very not very copy and pastable. Okay, you're accountable for the full fucking funnel, right? Start to end, the whole VSL, everything like that. You're gonna have to go in and basically growth up their whole business, which is getting them more clients, right? And that's not very copy and pastable. You have to have a big team and very personalized stuff. And then obviously you've got the ultimate form of this on this little ladder that we're doing is getting them more money, right? Now I'm just gonna stop here. Like, obviously, fucking don't do this. This has been rinsed. We've all heard, oh, mate, I'll make you 10K a month, lad. Like, you know, this is just not a very good guarantee. It's been rinsed in info. Surely none of you idiots kind of believe that getting more money guarantee is still actually legitimate. Okay, so where were we? And this is a channel, this is something different topic that I've been struggling with recently. It's where do you drop the price? Okay, and this is kind of different from the ladder that we just talked about. Okay, so I'm the founder. It's like there's a couple options here. You can drop it in the initial outbound message or the outbound cold call or the ad. Would you drop it there? We do, because price is a benefit for us. Price is a selling point. I don't know if you dumb idiots understand that, but for us, having a $75 seller lead, well, that's great. If it's any less than 997, I wouldn't have it in this initial spot, okay? Because no trust is built. If you're having it in the setter, you're getting people come in, and I'm going to go over a very specific way of how we can track this a little bit in this video, is are you going to put it here? Are you going to mention the price on the call? It's very risky because no relationship is built. I wouldn't do this, particularly if your product is like over $1,000, right? The place where we do this is on the sales call. You've got to establish the value and that trust first before you're dropping something which is over $1,000, okay? So we need them sold. We need them doing in the hair. Even if no matter how attractive your offer is, if your offer is over 997, you're going to have to drop it in the sales call, because I know how it is. You can have sales reps whinging at you saying like, oh, the call quality is shit. And maybe you're getting frustrated because you just had 20 calls off the back to back of each other and you haven't closed shit. You know, that's always going to be a problem. But something that I have done recently to increase those amount of calls, and this is the real source. This is something that, you know, people aren't going to tell you. We learned this from a big agency owner, okay? And this is how you get a 20% boost in your show rate, okay? So we all know the SMS, the email reminders, watch my VSL on. Some of you guys probably think you're fucking smart, and then we'll put in the text messages to sound colloquial, things like BTW or like acronyms, or some of you clever guys might even use blue text or send in blue or whatever the fucking company is. But that shit doesn't really matter, right? The problem is they're not engaged, okay? How do we get them engaged? Well, for us, we ask them, in which city do you prefer your seller leads? City A or city B? Houston or Texas? Sorry, that's fucking really low IQ of me. Houston or Fort Worth? Okay, right? So the point is here, we're asking them a question. We're not just saying, hey, Bob, your meeting's scheduled at this time. It's going to be with this person. Join the meeting here. Okay? No. We're asking them a question, or even just getting them to react with a thumbs up so they're actually engaged and they're reading the messages. That way we can tell if they're going to show up. And if maybe they're on the fence, okay, this is a great way to get them engaged. Another huge issue I see with you guys is that you're extremely impulsive, okay? So let's say you haven't got a sale for a couple hours or a couple days, knowing you guys. You know, you'll say something like, oh, let me have a chat with the sales guy. Let me figure out what's going on here. And, you know, you get on call with him and it's just not very productive conversation. You're just chatting and the sales rep is basically moaning to you about issues that he's having at the moment, and you can't really do anything about it. Okay, because you don't know the specific issue. You can teach him on how to deal with objections better. Doesn't mean he's going to do it. No, he's not. Okay, like you don't really know what they're chasing them for, right? Which is why you need a system to understand this. And what I see a lot of people doing is waiting till they have a perfect system. So something that they could accurately use to solve that issue on autopilot and give feedback to the salesman in this example. And they're just failing to do it. Right? So implementing a system to ensure performance. So something that we were struggling with is a new compensation structure for the people with the onboardings. Okay, an issue we were having is that people, in an attempt to upsell our clients, would exaggerate the service on the onboarding, Okay, so where we're meant to be setting the expectations, that would exaggerate the service, okay, and then it would cause problems later downstream. So how can we do this? Well, we implemented a system using a browserless automation that gets Fathom transcripts and then analyzes to see whether they've been setting our expectations. There's about 8 key points they go over, and it's simple checklist that gets auto-filled for every call that is submitted in a sheet. And it's, okay, did they say that every lead is not going to convert? Yes, they did. Did they say that 1 in 20 leads is going to convert? No, they didn't say that. Did they say that we're going to get to all calls within the second? Okay, you see how the expectations could be got there? And the idea is that you can track that. This can then give us a scorecard like what we've got up here, okay? So where we can actually compensate the behavior rather than the outcome, okay? So instead of just paying your setter or your closer by, all right, I'll give you flat 500 for a sale. What you can do here is, because people, they can cheat that, they can exaggerate what they're saying, is you can then go ahead and give deductions and give accurate compensation dependent on their actual performance, okay? And it gives you data points to improve. Now, what I'm about to go through is probably the most important part of this, and this is something that has really, really burned my brain the last couple of weeks, okay? And this is a reason why, we are growing so quickly, okay? Is because we're able to distill everything down, like these big companies, these big private equity companies, these conglomerates, these Amazons, this is how we're able to do it, guys. This is the real source, and I'm going to show you the actual breakdown of it right now. But I was dating this girl for a couple months, and she worked at Amazon offices in London, in an office of 5,000 people. Amazon had 3 other offices in London, each with more than 5,000 people. How do you think Amazon does this? They treat every employee as a number and a KPI. Every single aspect of their role is KPI based and tracked, right? So let's give a tangible example that's actually going to be useful in your businesses. So the most basic one is a 3-to-1 ratio between profit and CAC. But how specific can we get? And dependent on how granular we can get with this is how quickly we can diagnose the issue and how quickly we can get back to profit, okay? So this is all the things, the process that affects profitability. Okay, let's just say in this example, we can see that CAC has gone up. You guys, if you don't know what your CAC is, that's real basic shit, guys. I'd be worried if I didn't know what my CAC is. Like, you got to get a better hold of your numbers if you don't know how much it should cost you to acquire a customer. Okay, cool. And let's say this is the things, all the things that affect CAC. So your ad costs. What percentage of people are watching the pitch? How many people are tapping the CTA? How many of them are actually cost per call? All of this stuff, right? But let's just say that setters. The setters were the problem. We were getting a lot of leads in, but we weren't converting them right well. Okay. So we've isolated this bit of it, and then we can go ahead and see what is involved in this process, in the whole setting process, from when they submit that form to when they go on Slack, okay? And then we've isolated, and this is a real issue that we have in our business, that our setters were being lazy. They weren't adhering to the 5-minute thing when you got to call the lead that when it comes in 5 minutes, and they weren't double dialing, okay? So what you've got to do is you've got to architect a system which is going to solve that. So this is an example of something that we're building right now. You numbnuts could probably never build this, but this is just an example. Because it needs a developer and I'm pretty smart. Basically, you have high level here, right? And then you have all the people, but you can't track, okay, are all of my 40 setters, we do have 40 setters, calling people 3 times, waiting an hour, then calling people, and then calling those exact same leads at the end of the day. How the hell are we going to track that when it's not automated? Okay, so this is what we're going to add. It's going to be basically going to be a web app. We have all the phone numbers here. We have the names of people, of all the leads, all the positive responses that we get, because we do outbound SMS. It could be done from ads, and then the time limits on when to call people, and all of this is tracked. Okay, so we can identify where the weak links are, which setter is not doing the jobs, and which setter is not double dialing. Because once we've patched this issue, then this issue gets patched as well. And then we've sorted out our CAC, because this was the break point here. And once we've sorted out our CAC and got it lower, well, our profit's bigger. And what happens when our profit's bigger? I can take more money home to spend on shit that actually gives me enjoyment.